These are the tools I'll be using to prepare my different resin parts. So relatively heavy duty, largely because the pore marks can be quite significant. So if I just look at this piece at the back here, this entire thing has to go. So compared to just a little nub sprue that you could just clip off and file with maybe just a little needle file and some sandpaper, this is going to take a lot more work. So first, obviously, just got a pair of side cutters. I'll cut that as close to the piece as I can. Obviously not too close because I don't want to risk splitting the resin. It definitely feels a little bit more brittle than plastic. It's not flexible at all, this particular resin. Once I've chopped that off, I've got more of a heavy duty file rather than just a needle file. I'll see how that goes. It's not particularly rough, but a lot rougher than, let's say, my modeling file that I've got here. This is the respirator I'm going to be using for all my filing work. This is a 3000 series 3M respirator mask, and actually is quite a snug fit. I'll probably do another review on this. A nice silicone piece here to fit on your face, so that can fit quite nice and snug. And the filter here is a combination filter, so it does the oil-based particulate, which is what a resin is. So obviously particulate just means resin particles. And it also has the vapor component for vapor gases or vapors. So obviously for resin, I'm not pouring the resin or anything like that, but while I'm filing it, that will generate heat. Particles may evaporate, and this just seemed to be quite a nice simple kit to get. Having a 2-in-1, this will last about 6 months. When they say when it starts becoming difficult to breathe, that's all, of course, when you can smell whatever it is you're working with. That means it's time for it to go. And just to show the labeling, this is obviously the 3M 3391, that's just for the particulate and vapor filter, and it's up to spec of A1P2. So the highest spec would be a A2P3. I'll cover that in a different video. For the use that I'm using it for airbrushing and sanding, that sort of thing, I think from what the discussions I've had, the A1P2 will be sufficient. So I'm going to make a crack on that and see what it's like to work with. So I'm going to sound quite different now. I'm wearing my respirator. But as you can see here, this particular piece here, quite difficult. That obviously I can snipple along the top, but if I look to the side, that actually has a pore mark going out the back, so I'm going to snip it right down to the bottom and then have to file my way through. The stuff is really brittle, brittle in terms of when I snap it, quite a lot of shattering goes on. It doesn't seem to stick to itself, and I'm having to apply quite a lot of force just to break these pieces. Obviously they're quite thick. I mean, if I look at this piece here, the section I have to snip off is over 1 millimeter thick, so quite a lot of work. So with it being somewhat brittle, it is actually quite easy to file. I didn't snip as close as probably would have liked to, but the stuff was just pretty much flying everywhere, and I thought I don't want the stuff stabbing me in the eye. I'm not wearing any safety glasses, so there's something I should probably get. You'll notice I'm also wearing gloves now. It's quite fibrous. You can actually see it in there. Maybe bring it a bit closer. Quite a lot of material coming off there. Quite fibrous. It's actually a little scratchy, so that's also why I'm wearing the gloves. The resin is quite toxic, so you can actually feel it on your fingers. Some people get quite irritated rashes, so taking another precaution here. But yeah, so heavy duty file, working its way through there quite easily, so this shouldn't take too long. Wow, really difficult to breathe through this thing. That went a lot easier than I thought. I guess the fact with the resin being a bit more brittle and fibrous means that you can actually file it a lot more quickly than you can plastic from a Bandai kit, for example. The one difficult thing is that, here you can actually just see all the imperfections in the inside. This is a handmade kit. The original sculpt is made by hand and then cast, so they're obviously more concerned about having the outside look nice and smooth and clean compared to the inside, where it's obviously they've taken out just enough so that it fits on the frame. So what that actually then means is when you start looking at the trimmings, sometimes I'm not sure if I'm looking at an imperfection in the sculpt or an imperfection in the mold. So I guess, I just need to file a bit away, press against other parts and see how that fits. So obviously it's still a bit of work to do there. Obviously I don't want to over sand or over file, because then I'll start creating gaps. But otherwise not too bad. Here's the pack at the back. So there was quite a lot to remove there, but using that big file, I went cream through there quite easily. So now it's really just about touching up a little. So I guess the next step will be to brush this off properly, give it a bit of a sanding, and then start using something like Milliput Superfine is something I got, just to start filling up little pockets of air that might have occurred, or other imperfections. But so far, off to a good start. The head unit was quite difficult to get right. It didn't fit flush at all. I had to do a lot of filing work just to try and seat that in there properly. You can still see now there's a bit of play, a bit of a gap there as well, but I guess this is as good as I'm going to get it. I filed it a little bit too much on this side, so you can see a bit of a non-straight or slightly skew gap there. Very minor, so I think I'm just going to leave it where it is. Bit of play. I'm not sure if I need to glue this. This will have an LED set in there, so I think maybe this needs to be removable. But yeah, that's not really fitting very well. And I've done quite a lot of filing, a lot of work on this already, so I might do a little bit more. I mean, if I look there, obviously I haven't got the angles quite right, so that really just wobbles in there. And again, it's really difficult to do that by eye, and you're obviously risking filing the wrong part. So here it's not quite clear where that resistance is, so I think it's from here. Again, with this being a hand sculpt, it's not symmetrical, so sometimes you think, oh well, I filed a bit on the left, I therefore need to file a bit on the right. But because it's not symmetrical, you can actually see it there. This vertical line, let me just try and get that right. This vertical line is kind of trailing off slightly to the right. So, again, just one of the challenges of trying to get this to fit. So a lot of work on that. So you can see if I let that rest like that, I've got a really good fit on the left, but it's not correct on the right. So I'm not quite sure how to deal with that. If I try and center it, you've got like a massive gap there. So yeah, that's what it's like. From a distance, if I put it down like that, and I look at the camera and I just look at it, it actually looks fine. So I don't think I'm going to worry about it being too perfect, otherwise I'll probably file it away into a tiny little piece.